What do you get when you throw every Marine into one movie, give all the Straw Hats the sickest style possible, and create the most memorable movie villain? One Piece Film Z. I love this movie. It hits the ground running with incredible fan service action and doesn't let up on the good times for nearly 2 hours. Released on December 15th, 2012. The last chapter of the manga published before this movie featured Caesar Clown becoming huge, whereas the anime was in between the filler tie-in arc, Z's Ambition. I was a bit surprised by my experience watching this movie. Film Z's story actually felt like something fresh and meaningful. I don't think any of the other movies have had such an emotional climax since movie 6, and if you've seen my review on that, you know that's high praise. The entire opening sequence is a damn near sexual experience with how utterly majestic it is. The movie starts with this killer beach raid led by Z, who is just taking out Marines left and right with his giant metal arm, while it also serves to introduce his main 2 subordinates. Without wasting any time, Z finds what he's after, a mysterious egg bomb. Then, Kizaru of all people shows up to stop him, and it turns out Z was once his master. How much more badass could you want an opening to be? This was the first time an admiral has been an active participant in any of these movies, and for Z to go toe-to-toe with him was a great organic way to establish the threat he'd be. Of course, he then detonates the egg bomb and blows up the entire island in this glorious explosion. We don't even cut to the opening credits yet, but how insane was that? I think it's enticing for fans and non-fans alike, but I also think by this point in the series, One Piece has created enough of a shorthand to make moments like this feel even more intense for those who are invested in the story. Like seeing Kizaru for someone who doesn't really know him would still be exciting because his powers are entertaining. But for someone who is familiar with him, and the admirals in general, this was an astounding way to kick off a One Piece story. It tells us that things are going to be serious right out of the gate, and this won't be an easy problem to solve. I just really appreciated that. Then we cut to the Straw Hats just goofing off. These goobers are playing some weird cherry tree game that is never explained, but the idea of them getting up to this Imagine-based game where they have to dress up like cherry trees is so endearing, and Brooke and Frankie keep these weird looks of theirs for quite some time. Chopper and Zoro are drinking, milk and booze respectively, Robin and Usopp are tending their gardens, Nami is being waited on by Sanji. All is well in the world until Ash begins to rain down on them. Cut to title. A big part of why I love this movie is because of how it manages to balance the 2 tones of the scenes I just described. Throughout the film, the Straw Hats get to be their wacky selves, getting up to no good in their own goofy situations, but at the same time, the story manages to make the threat of Z as serious as can be by utilizing the great cast that's already been established. More than any other One Piece movie, this one actually feels like it could have realistically taken place because of how grounded in the universe's established lore this story is, and how the actions of the characters involved fit within the larger vision of the One Piece world. Like I do with all these reviews, let's try and see where the events of this movie could plausibly fit into the One Piece canon. This is the first movie set in the New World featuring all the Straw Hats post-time skip designs. Interestingly enough, this movie continued with the true to Oda color schemes for the characters that Strong World started, most notably featuring the far worse eye color of Nico Robin. The most obvious place in the timeline to put the events of this movie is right in line with the anime arc, which came right after the Straw Hats left Fishman Island and emerged in the New World. This is all pre-Punk Hazard, and I think that's the only place this could plausibly all fit. Otherwise, there would have to be other people on board the Sunny. This is their first ever adventure in the New World, and that's pretty insane. Anyway, even the opening credits sequence is great. It gives an abstract look at Z's rise through the Marines, and shows off the major players in a fun, stylized way. I was excited to see where things went from here, and I was not disappointed. I'm not going to go through the plot beat by beat, but the first time the Straw Hats meet Z is an excellent scene. Z is so polite and thankful for being taken care of. Then, when he finds out they're pirates, his monkey brain takes over and all hell breaks loose. When the Neo Marines arrive, incapacitate the whole crew, and make Nami, Chopper, and Robin 12 years younger, I thought that was an excellent sequence that provides consequences to the crew rather than just Luffy. Also, I love how the Neo Marine symbol is just the Marine seagull upside down with a skull and sword through it. Very clever use of the in-universe assets. The thing that really kept me glued to the screen in the early stages of this movie was the involvement of the Marines. Not just the flunkies, but it's all hands on deck. Sakazuki holds a meeting with like every Marine we've ever met to determine what to do with the former Admiral Z. This was dope. This is something I didn't even know I always wanted to see until this movie. It's all-out war between the Marines and Neo-Marines over a grudge Z has, which leads him to want to kill all pirates. We find out that Z essentially wants to destroy the idea of dreams for pirates so more don't rise up. He'd love to obliterate the One Piece in his quest for mass genocide. Later on in the movie, we learn what exactly Z's deal is, and he's got to be the best movie villain. He actually feels like a three-dimensional character with serious depth. Garp tells Kobe Z used to be a loyal Marine, rising through the ranks and training pretty much everyone we've met, from Kizaru down to Smoker. Then one day, his family were killed by pirates. Still, he clung to justice and continued on. Then one day, his cadets were killed by devil fruit-using pirates. Still, he clung to justice and continued on. Then, the world government made that pirate a warlord, and he vanished. It's interesting to me how even this movie is making the warlord system something corrupting in this world. It's very Fujitora right before he pops up in the manga. There is one scene between Z and Aokiji that I thought was so perfect. It's a somber and restrained scene between a mentor and pupil, reflecting on the dark path Z has taken, and Aokiji's inability to bring himself to stop this man, who he greatly respects. That's what I'm talking about. A scene like that just couldn't be done with any of the other movie villains we've had. Oh yeah, so Aokiji's a surprisingly huge part of this movie that I was taken aback by. He hasn't really been present in the series since Marineford, aside from his quick cameo at the end of Punk Hazard, but I really loved his presence here. The Straw Hats run into him while they're laying low at a spa, and he's just like, "Yo, been waiting for you guys. Here's some info. Oh, my leg? Yeah, gone. It's an ice leg now. Pretty cool, right? Well, bye. I'll just kind of follow you around until the end of the movie." He's so cool. Before getting into the final conflict, I also want to say I love how these movies have just become fashion showcases for the main characters. Everyone changes outfits at least twice, some more than that. I mean, look at Usopp's undercover manager outfit. It's so perfect. That should be his new look at all times. I also appreciate how the story mixed things up by having Nami de-aged. That makes for some more unique beats in this story. The Chopper and Robin de-aging felt really insignificant by comparison though. Oh, and let's not forget about Brooke's much younger bones. But the real star of this show are those final act outfits. God damn, do they all look like actual pirates? It was so cool seeing them using the Sunny in a naval battle and then storming a beach dressed like this. I believe these were designed by Oda himself, so I wonder why he's never given us even a taste of this kind of style within the canon story. A lot of fun stuff goes down on that hot spring island, but the biggest takeaway for the sake of the film is the development of the relationship between Luffy and Z. Z raises some serious questions to Luffy about what he's willing to sacrifice to achieve his dreams, which actually go unanswered, but push Luffy on his single-minded worldview. I wish that was focused on a bit more throughout, but instead, Z steals Luffy's hat, and as we saw in the last movie, that's a major no-no. After completely destroying a populated island, everyone is like, oh, okay, Z has to be stopped, except for Luffy, who just wants his hat. Regardless, they're off to the final battle, which was so badass. It's the perfect continuation of this balls-to-the-wall Marine-focused story. There's an army of freaky pacifistas that General Frankie fights, the Zoro versus Sword Lady battle was sick, and the Sanji versus Tree Guy fight was well animated, but that character just lacked the oomph Sword Lady had. The use of CGI in the action is nearly flawless by this point. Yes, it's noticeable if you're looking for it, but it doesn't really matter when it's so seamless. The final battle between Luffy and Z in the mouth of a volcano rigged to explode was so cool. It was surprisingly grounded, lacking the bombast you'd expect from a final fight like this, and I really enjoyed that subversion. It gets you to focus on the two characters. who these men are and why they're fighting, rather than being distracted by flashy action. It really just comes down to a hockey-infused fistfight as they clobber each other back and forth until they're both exhausted. In the end, Luffy wins as Z realizes he kind of took things too far. However, since his actions on the previous island, there is no going back for him. So instead, he goes out in this glorious final battle against the Marines led by Kizaru. The emotions on display from all sides involved really tugged on the heartstrings, and then of course, the final moment of the movie shows a young Z dressed up as a hero. God damn it, I got chills when I wrote that down. Then the credits roll with some insane Avril Lavigne covers of Joan Jett and Nickelback songs to solidify that I loved everything about this movie from start to finish. I honestly cannot think of anything I dislike about this movie. I think it's the most solid One Piece film to date. It's a movie that's made by its titular villain, but that doesn't mean the other elements are lacking. In fact, I'd say the villain raises everything else up. Z gives Luffy an interesting arc, brings in fan-favorite characters to the story, and intensifies the action for this new era of One Piece. That's the sign of a truly excellent antagonist. I could sing this movie's praises all day, but now it's time for a ranking. On the scale of early 2010s out-of-canon anime movies, One Piece Film Z is a 10. This is it, by far the best. This is it, by far the best One Piece movie. And that's the video. Thank you so much for watching, and a special thank you to my dope-ass patrons who smoke premium kush and blow sick clouds. They're very chill. Also, the warlord who killed Z's cadets isn't ever mentioned by name, but it's gotta be Blackbeard, right? Let me know what you think in the comments. Until the next time, I'll shut up.